Most people begin their financial lives with the wrong question. They ask, how can I grow my money? But in the merchant districts of Edo, Japan, the first question was often more severe. How do I make sure what I have survives? A person who thinks only about growth becomes vulnerable to excitement, fear, imitation, and risk. A person who first learns protection begins to see money differently. Wealth is no longer a trophy. It becomes a structure, a reserve, a defense against uncertainty, a promise to the future. The old merchants understood something modern investors forget. Money that is not protected cannot compound. A fortune exposed to one reckless decision may disappear before patience has time to work. Why were merchants in a world without modern banks, insurance apps, or digital portfolios sometimes more disciplined about preserving wealth than people surrounded by financial technology today? To understand that, we have to enter the commercial world of Edo. Japan's merchant houses operated in an environment shaped by fire, crop failure, unstable prices, political restrictions, debt, and sudden changes in demand. A prosperous year did not guarantee the next one. A respected shop could lose inventory, credit, or customers through events beyond its control. They did not survive because every decision was brilliant. They survived because they built systems that made one bad season less likely to destroy everything. Their ledgers were not merely records of income. They were instruments of memory. Their household rules were methods of risk control. Their modest living was not always poverty. It was often strategy. The central principle was simple: preservation before expansion. Before opening another shop, extending more credit, increasing household spending, or taking a new commercial risk, the merchant had to protect the base that already existed. This meant maintaining reserves, limiting unnecessary display, separating household needs from business capital, treating reputation as an asset, and refusing opportunities that could weaken the entire house. The modern mind often interprets caution as fear. Edo merchants frequently saw it as continuity. They were not trying to win one dramatic year. They were trying to remain standing through many ordinary years. That is the first hidden lesson of wealth preservation. Survival is not the opposite of growth. Survival is what allows growth to continue. A tree does not begin with fruit. It begins with roots strong enough to endure wind. Why did this approach work so well? Because it respected the mathematics of loss. If a person loses 10% of their capital, they need more than 10% to recover. If they lose half, they need to double what remains just to return to the starting point. Large losses damage more than numbers. They damage time. Every dollar lost through panic, excessive debt, reckless speculation, or uncontrolled consumption is not only money gone today, it is money that can no longer compound tomorrow. The Edo merchant may not have used the language of modern portfolio theory, but the underlying wisdom was familiar. Avoid ruin. A business could survive modest profits, slow growth, and even embarrassment. What it could not easily survive was a loss so severe that it destroyed inventory, trust, and working capital at once. This principle appears in samurai discipline as well. The skilled warrior did not confuse aggression with strength. Restraint, preparation, and awareness often mattered more than movement. Applied to money, the strongest action is sometimes the risk you refuse to take. But knowledge alone does not protect wealth. Human beings are drawn toward visible rewards. We notice the neighbor's new car, the investor's sudden success, the friend's expensive trip. We rarely see the quiet emergency fund, the debt never taken, or the investment held patiently for 20 years. Protection is invisible. Consumption is public. That is why wealth preservation can feel emotionally unsatisfying. It offers no dramatic applause. The reserve account does not impress strangers. The decision to delay an upgrade creates no social proof. The boring portfolio rarely becomes a story at dinner. Behavioral economics explains part of this problem. People tend to value immediate pleasure more strongly than distant security. They feel the pain of missing an opportunity, even when it is poorly understood. They follow crowds because collective confidence feels safer than independent thought. In financial life, this produces a dangerous pattern. People risk what they need in pursuit of what they want. Edo merchant discipline reversed that order. The essential came first. The household had to remain stable. The business needed sufficient capital. Obligations had to be honored. Only then could expansion be considered. Today, the same principle begins with a financial floor. Before pursuing aggressive growth, A person must know what cannot be exposed: rent, food, health, essential family responsibilities, emergency savings, high-interest debt. These are not separate from investing. They determine whether investing can continue during difficulty. Without a reserve, every emergency becomes a forced financial decision. A job loss may force the sale of investments at the worst time. A medical bill may lead to expensive debt. A broken vehicle may destroy a monthly budget. The problem is not only the emergency, it is the absence of protection before the emergency arrived. Modern finance often celebrates optimization. People search for the highest return, the perfect account, the fastest strategy. But the more useful question may be, what weakness could force me to abandon my long-term plan? That question reveals the purpose of wealth preservation. It protects patience. Long-term investing requires the ability to remain invested. Compound growth requires time without interruption. Financial independence requires resilience against events that cannot be predicted. A reserve gives time. Low debt gives flexibility. Modest fixed expenses give room to breathe. Diversification reduces dependence on one outcome. Insurance transfers certain catastrophic risks. Clear records prevent confusion from becoming loss. None of these ideas feels exciting. That is precisely why they are powerful. The greatest modern mistakes often begin with a desire to look financially successful before becoming financially secure. Income rises, and expenses rise with it. A person upgrades the home, car, phone, holidays, and subscriptions. The new lifestyle soon feels normal. Then the income becomes trapped beneath obligations. This is lifestyle inflation, the conversion of progress into pressure. Edo merchant families understood the danger of display. Excessive luxury could consume capital, attract resentment, or weaken discipline inside the household. Simplicity protected more than money, it protected judgment. Minimalism in this sense is not the rejection of comfort, it is the refusal to let every increase in income become a permanent increase in need. Another common mistake is confusing concentration with conviction. A person becomes emotionally attached to one company, business idea, property, or prediction. Because confidence feels like knowledge, they expose too much to a single outcome. But preservation asks a colder question. What happens if I am wrong? That question is not pessimism. It is respect for uncertainty. The merchant who spread relationships across suppliers, customers, and forms of value was reducing the power of one failure to destroy the whole. A third mistake is using debt to pull tomorrow's consumption into today. Debt can be productive when used carefully, but consumer debt often turns future income into payment for past desire. It reduces freedom before the future arrives. Opportunity cost is hidden inside every payment. Money committed to interest cannot be saved. Money spent to maintain appearances cannot be invested. Money used to repair impulsive decisions cannot build generational wealth. So how can this ancient philosophy become practical? First, define what must be protected. Calculate essential monthly expenses. Build a reserve appropriate to your responsibilities and income stability. Treat that reserve as a wall, not as available spending. Second, separate protection money from growth money. Funds needed soon should not depend on volatile markets. Long-term investments should not be repeatedly interrupted for short-term desires. Third, protect yourself from your own impulses. Automate saving. Delay major purchases. Remove stored payment details. Create rules before emotion arrives. A good system makes discipline easier when willpower is weak. Fourth, keep fixed expenses below your maximum ability to pay. The wider the gap between income and obligation, the more resilient your life becomes. Fifth, diversify without chasing complexity. The goal is not to own everything. It is to avoid allowing one mistake, one employer, one customer, or one investment to control your future. And finally, think like a merchant house rather than a temporary consumer. Ask whether each decision strengthens or weakens the next decade. Ask what your habits teach the people who may inherit your example. Generational wealth begins before inheritance. It begins with restraint, record-keeping, patience, and thoughtful risk. The deepest Japanese lesson is not that wealth should remain untouched. It is that growth must be built on something that can survive. A protected foundation allows courage. A reserve allows patience. Simplicity allows choice. Discipline allows compounding to continue quietly, year after year. The modern world will constantly invite you to expand before you are stable, to display before you are secure, and to risk what matters for the possibility of having more. The old merchants offer a different order. Protect the household, protect the capital, protect the reputation, protect the future, then grow. Because the first purpose of wealth is not to impress the present, it is to remain strong enough to reach the future.